Hello guys, welcome back. I hope you're all doing great. In today's video, I want to talk about 3 fragrances, all from the same house, the House of Arquiste. The House of Arquiste is out of New York City. It was founded in 2011 by a gentleman by the name of Carlos Hubert, and Mr. Hubert is an architect turned perfumeur, and in 2011 founded Arquiste. And a few months back, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, maybe more, I uploaded a video where I went through a sample set. And after making my way through the sample set, 2 of them in particular piqued my interest, and I took those samples with me on vacation. I really enjoyed them. And then I think there was a point where there was some sort of discount code, and rather than pay shipping for each of the fragrances, I bought all 3 at the same time. The third one was a blind buy. It's a cheaper fragrance, and I read and heard some good reviews about it, so I added that to the cart, and I have all 3. So the 3 are Venice Rococo, which is a powdery floral fragrance. The second one is Nanban, which is an incensey, woodsy, leathery fragrance. Fantastic. And the third one is Ella. It's spelled Ella, E-L-L-A. And that one is a cheaper style fragrance that has some very interesting notes and an interesting sort of scent profile. So let's start with Venice Rococo and talk about the packaging. And the bottles are all the same, and they're made of a very substantial glass, and they're this really great sort of egg or oval shape. And I like the weight. They're really well made, and they're all 100 ml size bottles. I don't know that they come in any size smaller than the 100 ml size, and they retail for about $200 a bottle. That's how much the 3 that I purchased retailed for. I'm not sure if there are fragrances within the house that are more or less expensive, and they're all eau de parfum concentration. So, like I said, I like the weight and the way the bottles are shaped. And the caps they're not magnetic caps. They're nice. They have weight to them, and they clip into place. And the spray action on these bottles is really quite good. It's not pressurized, but it's really quite good. And Venice Rococo is a 2024 release. It's actually one of the later releases of these 3 that I'm talking about today. And like I said, it's a powdery floral fragrance. I would go so far as to say it's a powder bomb. This fragrance is for those of you that love super powdery fragrances. But what I like about it is that it's not a baby powder. It doesn't go into a full-on baby powder direction. There is something sort of interesting in here. So before we get into what it smells like and the notes, the inspiration behind each of the fragrances is really quite interesting. The inspiration behind Venice Rococo is basically flats or apartments in buildings in Venice, Italy, that are sort of meant to be used for intimate affairs. So there's something a little bit intimate about the inspiration behind this fragrance. And it really is delicate, but at the same time, it has an edge to it. And the whole time that I wore this on vacation, I was using this one as a daytime scent and Nanban as an evening fragrance. Every time I put this on, I was sort of debating whether it was going to turn into a full bottle, because there is something a little bit animalic that contrasts this powder bomb of florals in here. And there's something almost a little bit sour. So there's a note of cumin, and there is civet in here, which is sort of dirtying up or contrasting the florals and the powderiness side of the fragrance. But not too much to the point where you don't get the delicate nature. It's still a delicate floral powdery fragrance. It just has this edge, a slight edge to it, but it doesn't overtake. So it really is pretty. It's also an aldehydic fragrance, so It's sort of reminiscent of an old world floral aldehydic style fragrance. There is violet in here, there's orange blossom, there's rose, and there's also hawthorn in here, as well as jasmine and an iris note. So there are quite a number of florals in here, and there's a note that they're calling powdery notes. So they're adding powder to the fragrance, even though iris goes a little bit powdery, and some florals like rose also give a little bit of powderiness. It's also a little bit ambery, and like I said, there's cumin and civet, which offsets the florals. So it is an ethereal aldehydic floral fragrance. It is a powder bomb, and just behind all of this is just a touch of something a little bit sour, a little bit animalic, and if that doesn't put you off, then you should try this if you like powdery fragrances. It really does have a softness to it, a delicate sort of nature, and it does sort of give you the imagery of an old world Venice, where women in ball gowns and long curls are meeting up with gentlemen for some intimate affairs. And the juice is a light pink, which is really quite lovely. So I would say that this is a full-on feminine fragrance. Of course, anyone can wear anything, but I would say that it does lean feminine in my opinion. So that is Venice Rococo by the House of Arquiste. I've been wanting to add this to my collection ever since I went through the decant on my vacation, and I finally did. So next, let's talk about another floral fragrance, but one that's very, very different. It's a stark difference from Venice Rococo, and this one is Ella, which means she in Spanish. And this fragrance was released in 2016. The inspiration behind this fragrance is a disco in the 1970s, 1978 to be precise, in Acapulco, Mexico. So big perfume, big hair, disco, and this is a very interesting fragrance. By the way, the nose behind all three fragrances is Rodrigo Flores Rue. I hope I said that correctly. And this one I will spray on skin. The spray action is fantastic. It disperses a nice amount over a nice amount of skin. And I'm getting wafts of it. It's a chypre fragrance. There is a lot going on here. The florals in here are full-bodied, exotic, and even though you have all these florals in here, you have a cigarette smoke accord and a chypre accord in here as well. And it takes a floral into a sort of dirtied floral direction is the best way that I could describe it. So while you have the florals in here, there's rose, there's jasmine, and there's a cannonball tree flower. That's a mouthful, which we'll talk about in a minute. You also have a note of civet, you have patchouli, and you have cardamom, which is giving an aromatic touch to the fragrance. And like I said, that cigarette smoke accord plays its role in here, as does the civet. And of course, the chypre accord is giving the fragrance this vintage throwback style. And the cannonball tree flower note, I looked this up, it is described as a fragrance that's sort of a mix between jasmine and magnolia with a touch of lemon. So the florals in here do not come off smelling delicate. They come off smelling opulent. It's difficult to distinguish exactly what floral you're getting. It's not like you can smell this and detect necessarily the rose or the jasmine. None of those flowers are jumping out at me. So you get that it's a floral, but you also get that it is a chypre with green components. And whether it's coming from the chypre accord or it's coming from the patchouli, there's definitely the green component that is quite prominent in this fragrance. And you have that civet, which is definitely adding an edge, a little bit of an animalic touch to the fragrance. That is not off-putting. It's not too prominent. I don't think that it would be off-putting. What really plays a big role in here, in my opinion, is this cigarette smoke accord. So you end up with a floral that's dirtied by this cigarette smoke accord. It's very prominent, and it does not come off like a quiet, shy floral fragrance. It's meant to be reminiscent of a woman in Acapulco, Mexico, dancing at a disco in the 70s, if you could imagine that. It's hot and everyone's dancing, and maybe everyone's sort of sweaty, and maybe the woman went to this club wearing all black with big hair, and she had a floral fragrance on, a nice sort of full-bodied chypre fragrance. And as she's dancing the night away, she's getting a little bit sweaty, and everyone around her is smoking. And on her way out, you sort of get a waft of what she smells like, and you have an appreciation for the fact that you're smelling a pretty wonderful, full-bodied floral chypre fragrance, and intermingled in the florals is this cigarette smoke that's sort of lingering. It's a remnant of the cigarette smoke from everyone around her, and I definitely like fragrances that take florals into a little bit of a dark direction. I just spoke about Amouage's Opus 9 from the library collection. That's magnificent. That is at the top of my perfume collection. But this one is sort of in that realm. Another house that does a really great job with florals and contrasting florals is Karine Reutfeld. I own 2 of the fragrances, and I'm going through a little sample set that I purchased, and at least one of them I'm going to feature as a recent find. I think it's a great discovery that's going to turn into a full bottle for me. So this fits into that sort of genre. It's not a shy, delicate, ethereal, innocent floral fragrance. It's not. Maybe Venice Rococo is a little bit reminiscent of something more innocent with a little bit of an edge. This one goes in a completely different direction and gives you something super sexy. That smoke sort of sits on these lush flowers with the backdrop of a chypre, a typical sort of chypre construction, what a chypre fragrance smells like. This fragrance was created as part of a pair. There is a masculine version called L. I think it's just EL in a black bottle. And I think that I read that one is discontinued. I'm not sure. But this, along with L, I believe were released at the same time. And this is the woman's version, and L, the one in the black bottle, is the masculine version. So this is Aya. And last but not least of the 3, this is probably my favorite. This is a fantastic fragrance. This was released in 2015. So this has been around for a good 10 years now. And I think it's described as a masculine fragrance, but I completely disagree. I've seen women YouTube reviewers talk about this. This is totally unisex. I love this fragrance. It is textured, it is spiced, it's woodsy, and everything is balanced in here. The notes are perfectly balanced. I could rattle off notes like the notes that are in here for many perfumes that are out there. But what makes this one special and why I like it is the way everything is sort of balanced and blended. It's very, very smooth. So Nanban is inspired by the trade between Asia and Europe and the Americas. And it's a fragrance that opens up spicy and aromatic and then turns into this beautiful incense. There's a beautiful frankincense running through the fragrance, and it's resinous and warm with just a touch of sweetness. It's not a sweet fragrance, and then it gets woodsy, and it's textured. There's a leather accord, but there's also saffron in here and osmanthus. So you have some texture, possibly from the saffron, the osmanthus, and the Spanish leather accord. So I will spray this on skin. I love this fragrance. Let's spray this on skin. And I am not a big fan of incense fragrances. It depends what type of incense and how it's done. This is magnificent. I smell it from here. It's so great. Like I said, it opens up spicy. There's a Malabar pepper note. There's also black tea and coffee absolute in here, although I'm not really picking up a heavy tea accord or the coffee per se. It's probably adding to the complexity and the dimensions that this fragrance has. But it opens up spicy, but not too spicy, and I get the incense straight away, and it's very resinous and warm. The color of the juice, this sort of gold caramel color, is what the fragrance smells like. It has a little bit of a syrupy consistency, but it's not too much. The sweetness is just a touch, and after this really smooth, spicy, peppered opening, you start to get the woods that come through, and it's an exotic experience. It's an exotic olfactory experience, and the fragrance is textured in such a beautiful way. It's so smooth. It's like you can almost feel a buttery, soft leather, very fine, sort of soft leather between your fingers. And when it dries down is when I get most of their sandalwood in here. So I get the sandalwood, and the incense that runs through the fragrance never overtakes. It's not an incense that overtakes the fragrance. It plays really well with the other notes in here. There's myrrh, which provides a warmth, and it also adds just a touch of sweetness. Any sweetness is definitely a warm sweetness. There's nothing saccharine-like or sugary about this. It's really a beautiful fragrance. It wears so beautifully on my skin. I like this for the colder weather. It's not something that I'm going to use now as the weather is warmer. I probably would use Venice Rococo. Of these three, Aya is definitely a full-bodied cold weather fragrance, and I think Nanban is also a cold weather fragrance. It's really cozy, and like I said, it's complex, and you have this beautiful interplay between the woods in the fragrance, the incense, the myrrh, the spices, this leathery texture. The osmanthus, even though osmanthus can give a peachy, fruity component in fragrances, I absolutely don't get that. There's nothing fruity in here whatsoever. The coffee and the tea, like I said, I'm not necessarily detecting those notes in the fragrance. I think it's more the woods, the incense, the spices, the myrrh, and the texture of the fragrance that stands out to me the most. It's great. And this fragrance, for me, I think I would wear this in the evening, in the colder season, in the winter, maybe even in the fall. It's really warm, and it's resinous, and it's just a beautiful fragrance. Very, very well done, and it's definitely unisex. It's on my skin for 8 to 10 hours. The longevity here is fantastic. Aya is also a fragrance that lasts on my skin a good 8 hours. I feel like Venice Rococo of the three is the one that sort of gets close to the skin after about 4 or 5 hours. So that's my take on these three fragrances from the house of Arquiste, Nanban, Venice Rococo, and Aya. Let me know in the comments if you guys are familiar and like the fragrances from the house of Arquiste, if you know these three that we spoke about in today's video, and what you guys think. And as always, thank you so much for watching, your support, and your comments. Until next time, bye guys.